Welcome back to the deep dive. This time, um, we're diving into Cher, the memoir, part one.
Oh, fine.
I know, right? We've got reviews from Goodreads and a blog called Bossy Bookworm.
Sounds like a good mix.
Yeah, definitely. But you know what everyone's thinking? Like,
Is it worth it?
exactly, is it worth my time? Especially because this is part one.
Yeah, no, I hear that a lot actually with these, memoirs that are split up into multiple parts.
Right.
So, I mean, to be totally upfront with you, if what you're looking for is like the deep dive into Cher's acting career, you're gonna have to wait for part two.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But if what you're looking for is like the early days, like the music industry,
Yeah.
strong female voices, and just a really raw behind the scenes look at like a true icon, then this book is definitely for you.
Okay, that's promising.
Yeah,
I've got to admit, though, that whole part one thing does make me a little hesitant.
I get it.
You know what, if it ends on like a major cliffhanger, right when things are getting good?
Totally. No one wants to feel like they've invested all this time and then they're left hanging.
Right, exactly.
But think of this like more as the foundation.
Okay.
So the book really covers all of the early life and music career stuff in detail.
Okay.
So, like her unconventional childhood, her partnership with Sonny Bono,
Right.
and her journey towards becoming a solo artist. Like, it really lays the groundwork for like understanding who she is and how she got to where she is.
So basically, this is like pre-Oscar Cher.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I've got to ask, is the writing any good?
Ooh, good question.
Because, I've read my fair share of celebrity memoirs,
Oh, yeah, me too.
and some of them are just like PR fluff.
Total fluff.
So is this one different?
Yes, this one's definitely different.
Okay.
So both Goodreads and Bossy Bookworm, like everyone pretty much agrees that this book is surprisingly raw and honest.
Okay, interesting.
Like, Cher does not sugarcoat things at all. She's not shying away from her relationship with Sonny or her financial struggles, even like her near-abortion experience.
Oh, wow. Okay, so like really heavy stuff.
Yeah, it gets into it.
It's interesting that you say that it's so honest, because I feel like with a lot of these memoirs,
You never know.
you never know what's real and what's kind of fabricated for the sake of image.
Right, exactly.
It seems like she's not holding back.
No, she's not. And I think that's what really hooked people.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Like, they were really drawn to her candidness.
Okay, so you said it covers her early life. Like, what kind of specifics are we talking about here?
Okay.
Was there anything that like really stood out in the reviews?
Yeah, so for starters, like, her childhood was not ordinary.
Right. I mean, that's kind of a given with
Yeah, exactly.
larger than life.
Yeah, her mother's multiple marriages, and then also her mother's aspirations for stardom really shaped Cher's own path.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like a generational thing.
it is.
Okay.
And speaking of shaping, the book really dives into Sonny Bono's influence,
Okay.
not just on their music,
Right.
but on Cher's image and even like her career decisions.
Oh, wow.
It really gets into like his controlling behavior and how she eventually broke free from that.
Okay, so this isn't just like a fluffy love story.
No, not at all.
It sounds like it goes deeper into the power dynamics of their relationship.
Exactly. Reviewers specifically mentioned that the book gave them a whole new perspective on Sonny and Cher.
Interesting.
It wasn't just the song and dance act, there were real struggles and complexities there.
Yeah, when you think about that time period, it was
A different time.
a different time. And the expectations for women were so different.
Totally.
And I mean, we're talking about like the music industry, which is,
A whole other beast.
a whole other beast.
Yeah, and I mean, on a lighter note, there are some fascinating glimpses into her relationships with other music legends like David Geffen.
No, of course.
And even Gene Simmons.
Gene Simmons.
Yeah,
Oh, that's an interesting pairing.
it is.
I'm kind of curious about that now.
Yeah, it's the fun little tidbit.
But you mentioned earlier that the book is well written.
Yes.
So how does Cher's voice actually come through in the writing?
Oh, it's great.
Okay, good.
The reviewers praised how conversational and authentic her voice is.
Okay.
It feels like she's sitting down with you, telling you the story over coffee.
Oh, I like that.
It's not overly polished or academic.
Right.
It's raw, it's emotional, and sometimes it's even funny.
Well, that's good.
And if you listen to the audiobook, you get an extra little treat.
Oh, look at that.
Cher actually reads the beginning of each chapter.
Oh, wow.
And then it transitions to actress Stephanie J. Block.
Okay.
And she won a Tony for playing Cher on Broadway.
Oh, wow. So she's like a professional Cher.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I could see how that like dual narration would add another layer of depth. It's like getting two perspectives on the same story.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Okay, so we've talked about the good stuff, but you did mention that Bossy Bookworm had some criticisms.
Oh, yeah, right.
So lay it on me. What didn't they like?
So some reviewers found the chronological structure a bit limiting at times.
Okay.
They felt like some periods of her life were maybe glossed over a little too quickly.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then they also pointed out some repetitiveness in the writing style.
Okay.
But overall, those were minor gripes compared to like all the praise for her honesty and the insights that she gives.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to be honest, but it's another thing to be honest and a good writer.
Exactly.
So it sounds like she kind of hit both of those marks.
Yeah, she did a good job.
Okay, so the writing is strong.
Yeah.
It's brutally honest,
Uh-huh.
and it covers a lot of ground.
It does.
But how does this book compare to other memoirs out there?
Oh, that's a good question.
Like, I'm thinking of Jessica Simpson's book, which was so open and vulnerable,
Yes.
or even Patti Smith's Just Kids, which was beautifully written
Mm-hmm.
and really captured a specific era in music history.
Yes. Those are great comparisons.
So where does Cher's book kind of fit in with those?
Yeah. So what's so fascinating about Cher, the memoir, is that it's kind of like those books.
Okay.
It offers this unique glimpse behind the curtain of fame, like the highs and the lows and the personal struggles that often get overshadowed by like the glitz and glamour.
Right.
But what sets Cher's story apart
Okay, I'm listening.
is that she's Cher. Is that she's Cher. Like there's a resilience to her that really comes through in the writing.
Yeah, for sure. Like when you think about it,
Yeah.
she had kind of a chaotic life from a young age.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And then being in this challenging partnership, and like we said, the music industry
Oh, it's brutal.
it's a tough business.
It's a whole other world.
It really is.
Yeah.
But she not only survived it, she thrived in it.
She did.
You know what's interesting is that you mentioned resilience, because
Yeah.
that was something that Bossy Bookworm brought up.
Oh, really?
They talked about how this book isn't just a gossipy tell-all. You know, it's really about a woman finding her own strength
Yeah.
and her own voice in a world that wasn't always kind to women,
Especially back then.
especially back then, and especially in the music industry.
Oh, totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the book does not shy away from like those darker aspects of the industry.
Oh, really?
Cher talks about, her financial dependence on Sonny,
Right.
the pressure to conform to a certain image, and just like the constant struggle for creative control.
It's like she had to fight for everything,
Oh, yeah, she really did.
which is sad because you think about someone like Cher and you think,
Oh, she had it easy.
yeah, you think she just had it all.
Yeah, but behind the scenes,
But behind the scenes, it was a different story.
whole different story.
So it sounds like this is almost like a historical document as well as a personal memoir.
Yes.
Like we're getting a glimpse into how much or how little things have changed for women in entertainment.
Absolutely. Think about it like a time capsule. You're transported back to that era of like powerful music executives
Yeah.
and very limited options for female artists.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't even imagine.
It makes you appreciate how far we've come in terms of female empowerment, but it also kind of makes you question like how much further we still need to go.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, are we really where we need to be?
Right, exactly.
That's a great point. And it kind of reminds me of Jessica Simpson's memoir.
Oh, yeah.
She also talked about the pressures of maintaining a certain image and like battling sexism in the industry.
Of course.
It seems like these themes of resilience and fighting for creative control are just kind of common threads
Oh, they're everywhere.
in a lot of female artists' stories.
Yeah, and with Cher, it's even more compelling because she was breaking down barriers at a time when it was almost unheard of for women to have that level of like influence and independence.
Totally.
It was a different time.
And she did it all while constantly reinventing herself.
Yes.
I mean, think about it, from the folk pop duo with Sonny to like the disco queen
Rock goddess.
to the rock goddess. She did it all.
She really did.
And I wonder if that constant evolution is part of what's allowed her to stay relevant for so long.
That's a great point. And the book touches on that too.
Oh, because it?
She talks about how she was always pushing boundaries, never content to stay in one lane, musically or stylistically.
She was never afraid to take risks,
Never afraid.
which is so cool.
Yeah, and maybe that willingness to take risks, to constantly evolve, is a big part of like her enduring appeal.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, if I'm someone who admires Cher for her fearlessness and her ability to constantly defy expectations,
Yeah.
would this book resonate with me?
Absolutely. The book really showcases those qualities, but it also highlights her vulnerability
Okay.
and her struggles. It reminds us that even icons are human. And that's what makes it so relatable. It's not just a story about fame and fortune. It's a story about a woman figuring things out, making mistakes, and ultimately like finding her own path.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
It sounds like this memoir offers more depth than like your typical celebrity tell-all.
Oh, for sure.
It's not just about the scandals and the gossip.
Right.
It's really about the person behind the persona.
Exactly. And remember, even though it's just part one, it covers decades of her life.
That's true.
From her childhood to her rise to fame with Sonny to her decision to go solo. There's a lot packed in there.
Yeah, that's a lot of ground to cover.
It's almost like a coming-of-age story, even
Mhm.
though it spans decades and it involves more sequins and feather boas than your average coming-of-age tale.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a great way to put it.
right?
It's like watching someone evolve right in front of you,
Yeah,
and you're rooting for them every step of the way.
yeah. I love that.
But I'm still a little hung up on this whole part one business. Even if it's a great read, is it worth investing time knowing that the story isn't complete?
Yeah, I think it depends on what you're hoping to get from the book.
Oh.
If you're looking for a complete cradle-to-grave biography, then yes, you'll probably want to wait for part two.
Okay.
However, if you're intrigued by like the early years, the music, and just that behind-the-scenes look at the industry in that era, then this book is a must-read.
Okay. Yeah, I get that.
Think of it as like a deep dive into a specific chapter of her life.
Right.
And a very crucial chapter at that.
Okay, so it sounds like it provides a foundation for understanding everything that comes later.
Exactly.
Like if I ever do read part two,
Yeah.
I'll already have all this rich backstory to kind of build upon.
Yeah, exactly. It's like getting the backstory for a superhero origin story.
Okay, I like that.
You learn about the struggles that shaped them, the events that made them who they are.
And like you said earlier,
Yeah.
her origin story is definitely a little more glamorous than the average person's.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's full of surprising twists, heartwarming moments, and some serious, I can't believe she just did that moments.
That's awesome.
It's a wild ride.
Okay, so you've sold me on the origin story,
Good.
but let's say I am convinced.
Okay.
What kind of reader would really get the most out of this book?
If you love music history, especially like the 60s and 70s, this book is a gold mine.
Okay.
If you're fascinated by strong female figures who defied conventions and carved their own paths, Cher's story is incredibly inspiring.
Yeah, that's kind of a given.
Yeah, and of course, if you're a fan of Cher's music,
Right.
or just curious about the person behind the icon, this book offers a rare glimpse into her world.
So even if I'm not like a diehard Cher fan,
Yeah,
if I appreciate those themes of resilience and ambition and, artistic evolution, this book might be right up my alley.
absolutely. It's a story that transcends the typical celebrity memoir.
Okay.
It's about finding your voice, overcoming adversity, and staying true to yourself in a world that often tries to put you in a box.
And I feel like that's something that everyone can relate to,
Everyone.
whether you're a Cher fan or not.
Exactly. And those are themes that resonate with everyone, regardless of whether you know all the words to believe.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well said.
Thanks.
I'm definitely feeling more intrigued now.
Good.
Like you said earlier, it's not just a celebrity tell-all.
Mhm.
It's really a piece of cultural history.
It is.
And understanding where someone like Cher came from, the challenges she faced, and how she ultimately triumphed can really give us a lot to think about in terms of our own journeys.
I couldn't agree more. It's a story that makes you want to put on your highest heels, belt out a power ballad, and take on the world.
Now that's an image. So for our listener who's still deciding if Cher,
Mm-hmm.
the memoir, part one,
Mm.
is worth their time, what's the final verdict?
The verdict is read it. Especially if you're fascinated by Cher, the music industry, or even just stories of female empowerment. It's honest, it's insightful, and it's surprisingly moving. And I think you'll really gain a new appreciation for her talent, her resilience, and just her overall impact on pop culture.
Yeah, it really does sound like it hits all the marks,
It does.
especially for, our target audience,
Right.
the people who love these deep dives into cultural history
Yeah,
and the things that shape these iconic figures.
totally.
And I think you're right that even though it ends in 1980,
Yeah,
it still gives us a lot of context
it does.
for her later career choices.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And just her overall legacy.
Yeah, you need that foundation to fully appreciate the whole picture.
Exactly. So for those of you who are still on the fence,
Yeah.
what would you say is like the biggest takeaway from this book?
Biggest takeaway. I think it's the reminder that even icons like Cher face real challenges,
Right?
and they have to make difficult choices.
Right.
I mean, we see her navigating these complicated relationships and fighting for creative control and just learning to define success on her own terms.
Yeah. And that's something that I think a lot of us can relate to,
Well, absolutely.
no matter what our careers are.
Exactly.
It's like that human element that really makes this book stand out.
Yeah, it's not just like a fluffy celebrity memoir.
Right. It's real.
It's real, it's raw.
She's not holding back.
No, she's letting you in, warts and all.
And I think that's what makes it so compelling.
Totally.
So would you say this book is more for like diehard Cher fans? Or can someone who maybe isn't super familiar with her music still enjoy it?
Honestly, I think anyone who's interested in the entertainment industry,
Okay.
especially the music scene like the 60s and 70s, would find this book fascinating.
Okay.
It's like a total time capsule of that era. Like all the glamour and all the grit.
It was a wild time.
It was.
Yeah. And I think beyond that, it's just a really well-told story
It is.
about a woman who defied the odds
Yeah.
and achieved incredible success.
I mean, how can you not be inspired by that?
I know. I'm adding Cher, the memoir, part 1, to my reading list.
Yes.
And for our listeners,
Yeah.
if you've already read it,
Yeah.
let us know what you think.
We want to hear from you.
Did it surprise you? Did it change your perception of Cher? Head over to our social media and join the conversation using hashtag #TheDeepDiveShare.
We love hearing what you guys think.
And for those of you who haven't read it yet,
Yeah.
would you be more likely to pick it up if part 2 focused more on her acting career?
That's a good question.
Let us know.
We're curious.
And until next time, happy reading.